Hey, it's James Lynch. If you guys missed it, Paulo Costa's coach, or new coach, I should say, did an interview with Guilherme Cruz of MMA Fighting, talking about the switch up in his initial fight to fighting Azamat Murzakanov at UFC 327. And we're going to go through some of the quotes in this interview. There's just nothing I can really say. I mean, you can read the title here. It says, Coach explains Paulo Costa's light heavyweight move, become a champion in both divisions. I mean, let's start there first. That's the juicy quote of this thing. Paulo Costa has not won a belt at middleweight. What makes you think he's going to all of a sudden be able to win 2 belts now? I don't have a problem with coaches being confident in their fighters, and I don't even have a problem with a fighter saying, I'm going to be a future champion. Why are you doing this if that's not the mentality? But to be a division champion in 2 weight classes for a guy that, you know, his one title fight against Adesanya did not go very well. It was one of his worst performances. He got finished by Israel Adesanya. I just think this is not needed, especially for a guy that looked like he turned the corner in his last fight. Why are you putting more pressure on him now? I don't really get this. But let's go through some of the quotes here because it's really interesting. So it says that his decision to move up to light heavyweight was part to make history. So I don't buy this either. So if you guys remember, Paulo Costa was supposed to fight, I think it was Bruno Ferreira, if I'm not mistaken, at middleweight, right? They had the poster out and everything. Yeah, Bruno Ferreira back on March 7th on the UFC 326 card. So if you guys remember, like, this wasn't even a thing where there was a rumor out there. The UFC actually posted on their social media like a poster of Paulo Costa and Bruno Ferreira fighting each other. Then all of a sudden he's out of the fight, and then we hear that he's fighting Azamat Murzakanov at light heavyweight. And everyone's kind of like, and my thought initially too was like, does he have problem making middleweight now? Like, what's the issue? Now the coach here says that it's just a way to make history. I don't buy that. I think probably, if I could take a guess, and we'll get into some of the quotes here, Costa probably didn't want to fight this guy. I don't actually think he signed the contract. I think, and the UFC's done this before, by the way, and I've talked about this in other videos, where the UFC will just put a poster out, say a fight's official, to pressure the other fighter to take the fight. I know that's what happened with Aljamain Sterling and Sean O'Malley way back in the day. UFC just announced the fight. Sterling hadn't agreed. So that could be a case where that happened. So I think Costa's like, forget that. And then I think Costa's probably also like, it's kind of a tough cut to 185. Maybe I just want to fight at 205. That's what I really think happened. I don't buy this. You know, we're moving up to make history. Like, there's no history right now. Even let's say best case scenario, he moves up and wins the light heavyweight belt. There's, you know, it's not like he was close to a middleweight title shot either. I don't think so. Anyways, let's read the rest of the quotes here. It says that he's moved to Largo, Florida, which is interesting. Trainer with Benkei. Hope I'm saying that right. So he's got a new head coach, so that's interesting. He's focused on becoming world champion. He told MMA Fighting he wants to become world champion within a year, okay? Nothing wrong with that. Again, I like the ambition there, but here's where you're going to lose me. This guy is giving up everything. He hasn't even lived at his home. His mind is ready for now. Praises... he says that he praises Bruno Ferreira as an excellent fighter, but that fight wouldn't add anything to the project of becoming champion. Well, you're not really in a position to say who you should or should not be fighting at this point. Again, prior to Costa winning that fight against Ferreira, it didn't look so good, and he wasn't fighting that often, right? He got the win over Coppola, but he was coming off 2 straight losses prior to that. Like, what leverage do you have to start turning down fights? So there's that part of it too. Then he says Costa didn't sign the contract. That I do believe. He only agreed to it, discussed the possibility because the UFC didn't give us an option in the top 10 or top 5. And on the day he said, all right, let's look at this fight. 2 top ranked fighters booked. If those guys weren't available to us, how did they end up fighting? He was a bit upset with the UFC. Then the UFC tried to adjust things and said, look, let's do this. Do you want to fight at 205? We'll give you a chance. If you win this fight, you get a top 5 spot. I mean, if Costa does beat Azamat Murzakanov, he absolutely does deserve a top 5 spot, in the sense that you look at where Murzakanov's ranked at 205, he's right up there. I don't disagree with that. Where is he right now? He is ranked, whoops, I always do that. He's ranked number 6. So that would make sense if he does end up beating him here. But yeah, I just don't see a scenario where it's like Costa turned down. I mean, maybe there was a scenario where Costa's like, I'm not fighting Ferreira. And then they're like, okay, do you want to fight at 205? Because I could see a world where Azamat Murzakanov doesn't have anyone to fight. I mean, there wasn't a ton of options out there. If you look at what's going on in that division, maybe like a Cleo Roundtree or someone like that. But I don't know like how many guys are ready and willing to fight Murzakanov as well. Like if you look at the rankings right now. So that very well could be a case where the UFC's like, look, we need someone to fight him. We're going to think outside the box. Paulo move up. But my initial thought when that happened was that Costa is having trouble making 185. And the reason I bring this up is because Paulo Costa, his fight a couple of years back with Marvin Vettori, granted it was back in 2021. If you guys remember what happened on Fight Week, he basically was like, yeah, we're not fighting at middleweight. We're going to fight at 205. And then it was the main event. And the UFC was kind of like, all right, I guess it's 205. And it was like one of the weirdest things that happened during a Fight Week where they just changed the weight class for no reason. So we know that Costa does cut a lot of weight. So that was my first thought when I heard that he was fighting at 205, is that Costa's having trouble weight. We still don't have clarity because I also don't believe that they're like I said off the quote here, I don't think the whole plan all along was to make history. I think it's just that they gave him to be honest, Murzakanov is a better opportunity for Costa than Bruno Ferreira, but still, I don't think it's to make history to win a belt in 2 weight classes. But let's get to the juicy quote here. So he talks about how impressed he is, never trained with a guy like a physical reaction. So I don't believe anyone matches his strength at 85. I mean, he's lost at 85 before. Where's the quote though? Let's find it here. I don't have to keep looking. Yeah, it's the 2 division champion quote that I'm looking for. We're moving up to become champion. Here we go. Here's the quote. Here's the juicy quote. UFC tried to address things, says, look at this. You want to fight at 205. If you win this fight, you get a top 5 spot in both divisions. You can move forward in both and go for the title in either if you want. I mean, again, if he's fighting at 205, and here's the other thing I haven't even mentioned. Paulo Costa is 34 years old. He's going to be 35 in April. We're getting to that over 35 or 35 and above weight, sort of statistic, which we know it doesn't fare well for fighters that are that old. That's a challenge worth taking because I think he's ready. He has the eye of the tiger net. Boy, I've heard this before, the eye of the tiger. So let's go. That's why he moved up. We're moving to become champion in both divisions. Like, I know he's kind of just talking about this because he's opening up the possibility about going down to 185. I just think, why are you making this quote when you're dealing with a fighter who has not fought for a title since, when did he fight Adesanya? That was ages ago. It was before the pandemic, I think, right? 2020, or it was after the pandemic. 2020 was the last time that Paulo Costa fought for a title. That was 6 years ago. Why are we talking about being a champion in both divisions? That's the part that you're losing me with. Like, if you want to come out here and say, okay, we got a new Paulo Costa. He's going to make a great run at 205. I'm fine with all that, but it's a little bit arrogant to say I'm going to go and win a belt in 2 weight classes when you haven't achieved anything. It would even be a different story if Paulo Costa had previously won the title and is moving up and says, I'm going to be a champion in both divisions. At least then we would have proof of him being championship material, but I'm not seeing it because, again, his last title fight, and granted it was 6 years ago, he got finished in the second round. It was one of his worst performances. So, I want to make history. I do hope that Costa can pull it, put it together. He's exciting to watch. And obviously people really enjoy, his antics on social media and all that stuff. That's great. I'm not here to, downplay Paulo Costa. I blame the coach here for putting so much pressure on Costa to try and make some crazy run that, let's be honest, people even watching this video, most MMA fans, Paulo Costa's not going to become a 2-division champion. There's no way that's happening. I think you have a better chance of John Jones and Tom Aspinall fighting each other than Paulo Costa being a 2-division champion. Like, that's not taking place. That's not going to happen. So I think it'll be interesting to see how Costa does at light heavyweight. He's got a tall task ahead of him in Azamat Murzakanov. I'm curious to see what the odds are in that. And even height and reach wise, like, Costa's a little bit taller and has the reach advantage in this fight, but I don't know. I have some questions, and let's have a quick look at the comments to see how people are feeling about this, quote from the coach. And you haven't become champion at middleweight. Paulo becoming a champion, not 1-2 to weight divisions. Who's this guy's plug? So a lot of people are kind of seeing what I'm seeing here. It's a little bit delusional to say this. Such a great talent wasted. It's high on some stuff. I mean, I don't think I'm alone here in thinking this. And I just don't see the need from his coach to say this, to put additional pressure over Acosta, who, let's be honest, just got a win. Well, they didn't just get a win, but it's a step in the right direction. I thought Costa looked good in his last fight, but also Roman Coppola is not like a world beater at middleweight either. So I just think this whole thing was unnecessary. I know, again, it's just one quote out of an entire interview, but the whole, thing about like, yeah, we're going to 205 to make history. It's like, no, you just need to gain some momentum. I think the biggest thing that fans want from Paulo Costa in 2026 is be more active here. Look at this. If we go back to the Izzy fight, 2020, 2021, 2022, took all of 2023 off. 2 fights in 2024. That's good. Fought once last year and is fighting now in sort of spring here against Murzakanov. Maybe we'll get 2 fights this year, but he's got to be more active if he wants to make some noise. So yeah, bad quote here from Paulo Costa's coach. Not a fan of this, and I just think it adds a lot of unnecessary pressure to Costa. So your thoughts on the coach's quote? How do you think Paulo Costa is going to do at 205? I personally don't think he's going to beat Azamat Murzakanov. Maybe he does, but I mean, just, the way Murzakanov has been performing, he looks outstanding. He looks like a contender. Paulo Costa, I got some questions. Follow me on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, @Lynch on Sports. My name is James Lynch. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next time.